Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. I know some of you have been in the waiting room for a while, but we are finally getting underway on the dot of 5. So welcome to everyone. Happy New Year, because we've not seen you since December. We are continuing with our IoT series in association with Etisalat Digital and PTC. And this week, we're going to, for this particular session, we're going to take it in a different direction. But it's something we've been wanting to do for a while, which is to bring augmented reality in. And many of you might be surprised thinking about augmented reality in the context of, of IoT. And we'll explain everything to you in a bit. I'm just going to share my screen again before I get into. Okay, let me just start sharing again. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. Yeah, okay. So yeah, just to recap what we already showed you at the start. This is a little bit about the assembly. I mean, you would have seen it in the preview in our little teaser that we did at the start. We're a smart lab and makerspace that's based out of In5 since the last 5 years. And we've done over 300 free workshops. We keep updating that because we do workshops every week. So although we do the Etisalat workshops once every month, we have a hands-on workshop every week. And for the last, well, now I guess it's almost been a year since COVID hit us and hit everyone, of course, we've taken it online and we do virtual workshops. But once we, once hopefully we're over the hump on that, we will resume in-person workshops. And these workshops are, if for any of you who've attended them, are quite a lot of fun. We work with so many different types of technology, and you don't have to bring your own hardware when you come to our sessions. We provide everything, like whether it's a Raspberry Pi, circuits, connections, and we show you how to make that. And of course, those come under our assembly hack workshops, and IoT would normally be under that. In this case, obviously, we don't really involve hardware too much because of the virtual nature. We also have assembly code workshops where we involve purely software, and I guess this particular workshop would qualify as an assembly code workshop because we're working only with a system. But if there's a hack workshop, you don't really have to bring your own systems and hardware, and we just bring that, we provide all that directly. Our latest stream is Assembly Data Science, and we've incorporated that. So maybe at least once a month, we do a data science workshop where we talk to you about AI and ML, and we show you how to do practical things with AI and ML. And our workshops are all presented by our in-house team. And they are there every week. So we do have one workshop. If you want to check out our regular workshops, those are every Saturday. And we do them. They're very short workshops, and they're very targeted. Our audience ranges from students to professionals to entrepreneurs. Obviously, we're based in In5, which is the entrepreneurship hub of Dubai Internet City. So we do cover a full range, and we don't really make any age restrictions, or we don't exclude anyone. Anyone who has an interest in technology is welcome to join us and is welcome to come and attend our sessions. We focus on smart technology and practical applications. So the practical part is important. We don't just want to do 101 sessions. We want to show you hands-on how you can build things and how you can do things. You can all sign up for our forum. So in addition to all the other social media channels we use, our forum is where we present all our, we present, so where we add all the links, we manage all our events, so RSVPs and everything are done through there. So please do check out the forum. You can also connect with each other there. We want to, get people talking to each other about technology and exponential technology in particular. Our social media handle is Make Smart Things, and you would have seen that is you would have seen that phrase a lot in our branding, because that is our mission statement as well as our core ethos, and that's why we've chosen that as our social media handle. So if you go to social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you'll find us as Make Smart Things. We're also obviously active on Meetup, and many of you would have come to us through Meetup as well. And we do try to get into, we're also active on LinkedIn as mentioned. So do find us there, and do please tag yourselves. If you have any questions, do send them in to us either through email or that. You can find all the details. This session is also being streamed on our website, and we will post it up. Like all our past sessions are also on the website. So you can go to the assembly.ae, same as our forum, only just replace members with www, and you can find all the past sessions as well as this one, which is being streamed live there, as well as we will put the recording up later. Okay, so that's enough about the assembly. Let's move right on to the topic at hand. Now, we'll just do a quick checklist. We did instruct people that before you come for the session, if you want to follow along hands-on, you do have to install the Vuforia Studio trial. So I hope everyone has done that. It's not, the installation is very simple. You just have to download, just go to that site. If you already have a PTC developer account, which you've used in past sessions, you can just use the same credentials and download that. So in case you haven't, be sure to do it. I think it's about 200, 300 MB. So that's why we ask people to do that in advance. I have also shared models in GitHub that we will be using on our session. So go to the GitHub page. In fact, let me just try to share my browser where I've got. Okay, so from the AR IoT models, you can get all these details on there. As I mentioned also in the presentation, let me just go back to my presentation. You can also optionally install Vuforia View on your phone. So you've got play.google.com/store/apps. This is for Android, of course. If you've got an iPhone also, you can install that. You can install this if you'd like to follow along, but don't worry if you don't have it. There are ways to preview in our system itself. But I will be sharing on Vuforia to give you an idea about what they are. I've got my phone as my co-host at the moment, so I will definitely be sharing there. Okay, so we've got all that out of the way. Let's go straight into it and let's have a look at what augmented reality is. So, I mean, I'm sure most of you would have been familiar with the concept before, but just in case, we will come. Augmented reality is a multimedia experience, an interactive multimedia experience, which is created obviously using software, in which virtual elements are overlaid on real world objects. So you can see the picture. There's an example there with the HoloLens. That is, of course, a depiction there, but you can see that the person is still in the room. They can still view their room and everything, but there are a few virtual elements on there. And it's often like people get confused with augmented reality and virtual reality. So the difference though between augmented reality and virtual reality is that virtual reality requires complete immersion. So you are in a completely virtual world and you are interacting with items, and it can be a bit tricky for some to get used to because you're completely blocked off. With augmented reality, there's mixed media. So you do have your public view, you have your normal view as you see through a camera, as you see the world around you, and there are elements that are overlaid on it, which is like, which are brought on, of course, they're linked to data, you can interact with them, you can do different things. Most of you, even if you don't know the term augmented reality, have used augmented reality if you have used things like Snapchat filters, where you are applying augmented elements onto your own face, where you use filters. So that is augmented reality. Pokemon Go was probably the biggest craze for augmented reality at a time, like I think probably 4 or 5 years ago, where people were using Pokemon Go to do, it was a lot of fun. Like, you would have items hidden in plain sight, which were again a form of augmented reality there. So most of the time, augmented reality, people think of it in terms of entertainment, and it is very much so in entertainment. And the reason we are discussing augmented reality here is not to do with the entertainment factor, though of course that is important. We're going to be talking about enterprise use of augmented reality. So enterprise use of augmented reality is particularly important in the IoT industry because it gives a context, a real world context for digital data. We're being swamped with a lot of data now. So we've got data coming in with 5G, with IoT. There is data coming in from all over the place, and it's difficult to keep track, and it's difficult to present that data. There are apps, and there are like 2D ways of looking at it, but there should be some way that you can contextualize so that people feel like they're interacting with the real world. And I'm going to show you some videos that will show you exactly how that works. Wearables and headsets are important, and like the key, like a HoloLens experience is probably the most likely way you would experience a PTC experience in enterprise. I mean, that's the best way to. We're not going to show that here. We're just going to use our phones to view the augmented reality experiences. But if you get your hands on a HoloLens, it's very easy to build up an AR experience using that. Okay. So let's have a look a bit. So this is a slide which I got from Vuforia. They did a bit of a study on this, and this is the only. I'm not going to concentrate too much on the elements like this, but just to give you an idea, there is value across the enterprise where you can use it in very different ways. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry right now. AR, augmented reality, and VR together, all told, is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's growing at such a rate that they're expecting by 2030, it's going to be $1 trillion industry. So there is a lot of scope, and enterprises are also engaging that. You might have already seen some examples. So for example, if you were buying a luxury car, a luxury car might have augmented reality, might have that option there that you could have, like on your dashboard, you could, rather than having to look at your dials and all, you could just get it on your windscreen, if it's able to project onto that. That could be one thing that we'll see a lot more of. So that is one key. But augmented reality is useful in many different parts of the enterprise. You can see whether it's design, manufacture, sales, services. Training is a very big one. When you want people to work with expensive hardware, and you want to train them without them necessarily having to look up a manual book and just like seeing what they have to do that. So that's a very big one for that. For manufacturing also, even sales, where your customers might get information that they wouldn't normally get from you directly right in place thanks to that. And we'll see some examples of that. So you can just have a look through there. This is the first example I wanted to show you. So I'm just going to share the video. Just let me make sure my sound is clear.
PTC's mixed reality solution has allowed us to drag and drop our 3D models that we already have to create guided work instructions to deliver to our production floor in hours and at 1/10 of the cost.
We develop a step-by-step guide that lets the assembler completely assemble the battery.
You're not looking at this in 2 dimensions. So just before we go on
with that, so BAE Systems BAE Systems they produce batteries, and they have a lot of people working on the assembly, including like this person in the video, and they use augmented reality to train people, and they've seen results. I mean, there are like calculable results where people are using augmented reality, and it's reduced training times. It's made it more efficient because people know exactly what's going in place. And it's also useful, obviously, now that you have remote work also, involved. So augmented reality does help with that. So it's really key in the
anymore on a screen that's far away from you. It's right in front of you.
The HoloLens has really become beneficial in allowing us to train new people on this product 30 to 40% more efficiently.
Using the HoloLens, I was able to cut my assembly time in half. We can understand and we can learn so much faster, efficiently, feel a part of this process. So you can see there,
they were using augmented reality while they're assembling, so they get information, additional information, which they might not have been able to get in place before. So that's a great example from manufacturing and for training. This is another one which is like explaining how it works in sales and customer support. Cannondale is a bike company, and this bike company uses it so that even after they've sold you a bicycle, you can like get familiar with the parts. You can see which parts to buy, how to fix, and how to do a lot of things. So I'm just going to start this video as well. great example of how you can even like reach out to your customers using this. And finally, a service example. So when people are involved in service of devices, so there's no audio on this, but you can get an idea. So say if you have a complex hardware, a bit of hardware like this, and you want to get information from them rather than like sort of reading the small tags, you can just get your HoloLens on and you can go and see what could be done with that. So, and remember, this is real data that's coming there. These are not simulated values. These are values that are coming from, which were already available through IoT. But thanks to this, you are able to see that more and more. Okay, so that kind of covers all that part. Let's talk about, building the AR experiences themselves. So what are the components in an AR experience? You have the physical object like you saw there. In this case, it could be a trailer. You have a digital scene, which could contain the 3D model, a digital twin of the 3D scene, and which is superimposed on that. So this could come from CAD. It could come, it could include the 3D gauges, different things. We'll see a lot of that. But you will also have, in addition to that, 2D digital overlay. So you might have buttons that, like, based on what you see, if you interact, as well as giving you like values on there. So you have a physical object, then you also have a 3D digital scene, the 2D digital overlay, and you bring that all together. That gives you an AR experience, and we're going to see more about that later on. Now, Vuforia is the leading enterprise AR tool there, and it's part of PTC. So the same company that owns ThingWorks, which we've used many times before. Vuforia is also another offering from them, and they usually work in concert. This is a bit of the structure of Vuforia. I'm just going to explain this to you. As I mentioned, Vuforia Studio is something that you install. It's a web-based service. When you install it on your local machine, it will be running on a local server. So it will be coming on local host, and you'll see that in a bit. Vuforia View, as I mentioned, is the component where you view that. The bridge between Vuforia Studio, where you are creating your experiences, and Vuforia View, where you are viewing them, is the Vuforia Experience Service. Now, this is a cloud server. If you are using the trial version like we are of Vuforia Studio, it automatically configures a Vuforia Experience Service for you. And I'll show you that in a bit more detail on there. So there are, apart from that, like what's shown below is spatial tracking and Thingmark. So those are the two methods we are going to use for how we identify, how we link to the experiences and how we trigger experiences. So Thingmarks and spatial tracking are the two we look at, and I'll show it to you in just a bit. This is just another view of the same, you can see there. So Vuforia Studio, which we will be using, will bring in a lot of different things like, the CAD tools, the media tools, so whether it's like PDFs or videos you want to play. The CAD could be from either Creo, or Creo Illustrate is another software from PTC. Creo is analogous to things like SolidWorks and for creating 3D tools, but Creo Illustrate allows you to animate them as well. So there's a lot of the stuff that we're there. We've just downloaded some of the files. So the PVZ file and the PVI files that you've downloaded will be our 3D models. So you can see, again, the Studio Experience Service will deliver the process to the Vuforia Studio. And you can see Thingworks IoT also gets connected to Vuforia Studio. So Vuforia Studio is the center, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. Okay, I'm going to skip off. I'm going to stop sharing my screen there now for a second, and we're going to move on to the hands-on version. In fact, let me just show you first, like if you have downloaded okay, so if you have already downloaded Vuforia Studio, I'm going to share it for you from my phone. Let me see if that works fine. Okay, so you can see my phone screen right now. So I've got Vuforia View over there, right? So once I open that up, by default, you can see a number of welcome experiences there, and you'll see all of these. I'll show you how to use these. Let's start off first with, and these use spatial tracking. So spatial tracking just means that once you start the experience, you can find an anchor, a real world anchor, where you can place the point. So I'm going to start with their welcome experience. You just get a regular screen here, right? where it says welcome to Vuforia view, and then we just start off here. So now it's got my camera view. Okay, now follow the instructions where it says point camera at a horizontal surface and move around slowly, and it'll try to locate a spot where it can place there. Let me just take my camera back a bit so that it does. If I just move it, and there you can see. So now I can place the object that's on there. This is really useful. Like if you had an example and it is going away. So I'm just going to try to pin it down here. So this item, like I'm just going to, I can zoom in by pinching the fingers, pinch fingers and move them away to zoom in. I can zoom out by pinching the fingers this way. If I want to rotate it, I use 2 fingers and I just move it around like this. 1 finger will just allow me to move it around. So I've got my item there, and you can see that. Sorry, my thumb's covering this. So my item is here, and you can see the instructions also there. So there are 2D elements to this Vuforia experience. So this is really useful. If you had a model that you wanted to show to a client, you could take this tool and you could use spatial tracking so that you can push it down there. Now, if I go back here and I show you, the next instruction, 2 fingers to rotate, it's just telling you all the things you can do. But there are also contact points here. Now it says tap on the hotspots. And it'll give me, okay, I've got because I'm viewing it from the back, I should just rotate it so you can see this. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Oh, sorry, it was the right way around first time. And in case you lose it, in case you lose the thing, you can always just shake your phone and it'll resume tracking, and then you can place it again. Okay, I've just got to find it again. It takes some time to recalibrate. Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm sure it'll just show up now. There we go. Okay, so we're back on there. I'm just going to keep it zoomed down. Let's zoom in a bit. Oh. Sorry, my phone is in a bit of a struggle there. I'll just re-get the option there. And let's just place it here. Let's zoom out. So I'll just rotate it a little bit so you can see it clearly. So you can see the features. So you can click on each of the points. So it is a clickable item there. Let me just rotate it a bit more. Yeah. So you can see different items there, and it can tell you exactly what's what on the bike. So you can put this up there. Now, apart from that, it can also, like, you can see warnings. These are 2D elements, and it tells you, okay, it highlights a particular part. It says these parts get hot during operation. And then finally, in the last move, you can see a disassembly. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see that. So if we start the animation here, so you can see here, it starts the process and it shows an animation where you are removing rear brake calipers, and it's going through step by step. So somebody can see this without anything. So this is that you can browse through all the different types of tools, and they're quite cool there. So, okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing for the time being. Let's go back. So that was Vuforia view. Right now, what we want to do is, like I mentioned to you that we've already got a few models there. Let's go into Vuforia Studio. Okay, now Vuforia Studio, for those of you who won't see that, let me just go back to, let me just show you. Once you've installed Vuforia Studio, you should get a window like this. Okay, and after that, when you say open, installing Vuforia Studio, you should take all the default things, the default options, so that it sets up your experience service for you directly. Once you do that, you just have to hit open, and it'll open up a browser window. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm only going to share my browser. Once you click, you can also view all the logs for Vuforia Studio in detail in case something goes wrong. I'm just going to keep this minimized, and I'm going to actually go back to sharing just my browser window. So I've already got, let which I can stop my share sound. Okay, so Vuforia Studio, once you say open Vuforia Studio from there, you would come up to here, or you can just directly go to that. It uses localhost and the port 3000. Now, in enterprise views, this could obviously be loaded onto the cloud, but it installs the trial version directly on here. And if you go here, you'd probably see a few more things. It shows you a few samples there. Important to is look at the ... and you will see the settings. Hopefully these would be. This is the important part. So this is your experience service, which should automatically be populated when you install the trial. And you need to keep track of this. This is where your experiences will get published. So everything else is fine with that. Okay, so I've created a few right now. I'm actually going to go back to my phone. So some of the samples, these studio samples are already open. You can see there. Let's open up the studio sample. The quadcopter is probably the most advanced sample, and it's one of the coolest ones in my opinion. So let's have a look at that. I've actually already loaded it onto my phone, so I've got that. So I'm just going to explain this to you. You can follow the hints, but I've already kind of done all this. So this is Vuforia Studio. This is where all the magic happens. Okay, let me just minimize my screen so I don't kill my system. Okay, so this is a simple example. I mean, this is a pre-built one, and we will build our own, example quickly on this. So this uses something called a Thingmark. A Thingmark is like a QR code. A Thingmark is the anchor for your tool there. And if you can still see my screen, I've got a Thingmark here, which I use. So if I go into my Thingmarks, Vuforia gives you 3 Thingmarks that are custom to you. So these are 3. You can see there are slight differences. These are like QR codes. You can always add on more, not in the trial version, but in here. So these things you should go and print out, and you can just paste this on. So this could be pasted onto the real world item that you have. So for example, this quadcopter, let me just go back and see the view there. So this quadcopter, a Thingmark has been placed below that, and it means that it should display the virtual element on top of that Thingmark. So wherever this shows up in real life, and this is, by the way, this is universal. Unlike the spatial experiences, we need to start up the experience. As soon as you point to the Thingmark, it will start it up. And I'll show you that on the phone right now. So let's just actually go straight to, I'm going to let me stop sharing here. I'm going to share from my phone again. I've already published this. So this is already published. But let's go over to the phone. Let me go back to share. Let's go back to the view. So now this is still in tracking mode, but if you see the middle icon, if you click on that, this goes into scanning for a Thingmark. And I don't need to, it actually automatically did that. I'm going to go and just so that you can see again. It's like a QR code. So it automatically gets my Thingmark and launches my experience. This is a choice option that it gives. So, this is my case, my Thingmark is on a horizontal table. It's flat, but it might be vertical. If it's a quadcopter, it might be vertical. So you might want to choose that. So these are options. So you can add preview windows like this also, and I'll show you how that works there. So now automatically on my Thingmark, it has added my 3D model. Okay, but it's also given me some functionality, right? So I can set this up. So I can start my Thingmark, my item working. So my drone can actually move, and even better than that, I can move it around like a real drone. Oh, let me just click on that. So I could just take it down. I could move it side. I could stop that. So I could get it to go there. I can get it to go up and down. So you can move it and you can see all the different things. I'm just going to stop so that it comes back to the start. So it shows you all this. There's another feature there, like for battery assembly. There's an animation there you can run. So when you hit play, you can see that. I'm not sure if I'll just zoom in a bit. So it shows you the animation step by step. This is how you would remove a battery. You have to keep clicking play because it's playing them one by one. Our animation is actually a sequence. And then you replace it back and you cover it, put the screw back in. So this is a really cool example that's there. Let me stop sharing so we can go back. Okay. Let me share the screen again so you can see. Oh, sorry, wrong share. So let's go back to our studio and see how they do that. Okay, so if you can see here, this is how to get, we will get familiar with this before we do our own. So this is the interfaces. Like I said, it's all a website. You have to save before any changes that you make on this are reflected on there. Preview gives you a nice, you can, if you preview here, it'll open up another window. That's what I was saying. You don't need to actually use the app if you want to just see the preview. So it takes some time because it's going to save first everything because it thinks this is quite a complicated example, but what we will do will be a lot simpler. Okay. Just close my other windows. But if you look, okay, while it's saving, let's have a look at the other things. It shouldn't take this long, so I think something's wrong. I'm just going to refresh my page. We don't really have anything to save here because we didn't change anything. So let's just go back to that. Bear in mind, I am running this off my local host, which is also sharing my screen and on Zoom. So that's why it's a bit slow. But normally when I'm running it just on the thing, it's super fast. But we are talking about 3D elements, so let's see that. So let's have a look. Let's explore the layout here. So you've got expandable panels here. On the top right-hand side, you can close off the panels. So the project window is on the left-hand side. You can close that. That's an overall view of the project, of the experience. The bindings tab, which is how we bind data and we bind different actions, is below, but we can hide that also. And on the right, we have the data tab, which actually gets the data from ThingWorks services. So we can minimize all these for now. The bindings are very useful. You'll see that later. I'm going to actually minimize all this. I'll keep the left tab open. So when you do save and when you go to preview, okay, now preview will save it and open up a new window here. So let me just make sure that the pop-up is loud. Let's see the preview because it opens another tab. So as soon as it finishes saving, it'll show a preview in there. Okay, there you go. So this pretty much shows what I've already shown you. It has the choice message here. And like with the Thingmark, it shows all the stuff, and you can test all your different tools on there. So this is really useful. I'm just going to keep that on there. Let's have a quick look through this before we go into creating our own project on there. So as I mentioned, the configuration is here. We already saw Thingmarks. This is where the views are. So remember, we have two views actually. We have the choice screen at the start, which asks us which screen do we want to. So that is a separate page, right? And this is actually like, if you look at our experience, this is a 2D page which just says, and okay, all the elements are there, which gives us the choice. So it says horizontal surface, vertical surface. Once we select something like that, it comes to the home page, the home experience, well, the home view rather. But the choice is a startup thing there. Now, this is where, when you have this, you of course first add your Thingmark, you drop it on there. And relative to your Thingmark size, you add a 3D model. So this is actually a 3D model. And when you click on it, you'll see details about the model there. And you can adjust the coordinates, the X coordinate, Y coordinate. You could do this visually also here if you have that. So you could move it around. It takes a little bit of time to get used. use the left mouse button to, to move left to right, but you can use the right mouse button to toggle and to see different things. You can get it to zoom directly in to the closest thing. So you can move these up. But if you look at your home view, you'll see that the quadcopter is the main model, but it's also got the sub-models. So that each of the propellers is a separate 3D item. That's how we can control it, right? And the 2D overlay, so when you can see the 3D overlay, this is here, but if you click 2D on here, you'll see the 2D mode there. So it's got a title that shows up there, and plus it's got the buttons that we had. Remember, we had the power button, which starts the quadcopter. We have the battery, which shows us the battery animation, as well as the play, to play it. So all these are 2D elements that are added to our experience, and they do something with the 3D. So you can toggle between 3D and 2D to see that, right? How does the animation actually happen? It's all a bit of JavaScript. So if you go to home.js, and this is the only bit of code I'm going to show you. It's actually got a timer code there where you can start the copter. So starting the copter starts, you can manually adjust the position. So in the timer, for every second, it is adjusting the position of X and Y for the propellers. And you can see there are app params. If you go back to your 3D container, you can see, you can see a few different things. Look at the 3D container, and let's go back to, sorry, where is that? The quadcopter. Let's open up our bindings tab again. You can actually see all the bindings that are there for everything. So the app parameters are the tilt, SZ. These are all the settings that are there. I won't get into it too much because we've got some stuff of our own to do here, but this shows you all the binding for this. And the key thing to see here is, look at the quadcopter. So you can see the buttons are bound to services. So there's a service called play for model 1. So when you press hit play, it plays the animation directly there. And you'll see that even in these settings here. So it plays the sequence, and you should look at the arrows. So very similar to Mashup Builder in ThingWorks, the arrows can allow you to bind. So all you have to do is drag and drop. So the drag and drop, you can see there. And don't worry if this doesn't make sense to you right now, it will later on. So you can see these are also bound because you can see the arrows are black as opposed to gray. So they have been bound to variables. So the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, and the Z coordinate, that's how we're able to move it around. And when we move it around, the propellers are separately animated. So there's a lot of clever JavaScript here that allows you to do that. I'm not going to get into this because, again, we are short on time. But if you have any questions about this particular example, have a look at it. It comes default built in, and we will also go and see there. So you can see here like some of the things. So you can see it binds the go left function. When you press go left, every time in the timer, it adjusts the delta. X delta is changed a little bit, and it renders. So start copter, the function starts a timer, and the timer keeps repeating, and it keeps changing the values accordingly. So it's very clever JavaScript, which you can easily do to animate. So it's quite easy to animate on there. Once you are happy with and I'm not going to do that here, you just click publish for this to be pushed to your experience service. Until you click publish, none of the changes that you've made here, even if they're available on preview, are going to be available in your experience on your Vuforia code there. So please do make sure you publish if you want to see all the details. You can also share, you can export the project. It's a very easy format to do that. Okay, that's good enough. One more thing that this is just to give you a quick thing. Let's get into building our own project first. I mean, that's the main thing that we want to do today. Anyhow, I'm going to just close things to just save up space. Let's go back to my projects. Okay, so to create a new project of your own, what you have to do first, you have to select the type of project that you want to do. So in my case, like I said, you get 2D eyewear is there, 3D eyewear, HoloLens would come under 3D eyewear. We're not using that. We're just going to be viewing it on my mobile. So let's go there. We'll just call it, let's say, the assembly test, right? So you can see the experience service is already filled up, and this would already be filled up for you. It would be different for you if you have configured your trial properly. The number would be different. So I just go and say create. It's a little slow right now because my machine is slow since I'm also streaming from the same machine, which is perhaps not the best idea. You know what, just to save some time, I'm gonna actually, let me just stop my video from here so that it's faster. Okay, hopefully this will speed up things a bit. So I'm just going to stop my video on here, but hopefully you can still hear. Okay, so we've got a new thing. The first thing we have to do is we have to add a Thingmark on our canvas. Okay, so the canvas is our 3D space here. So you can see there, it automatically takes the Thingmark. I have to make sure, like remember I have 3 Thingmarks. So how do I configure that? I go to the experiences, and here I should select my Thingmark. I've actually got 3 Thingmarks, but I'm going to select one because that's the same one that I printed out. You can also put a different initial view if you have a separate one. I'm only going to create one home view, so that's all we need to do. So I'm just going to save that and go back to my view. So I've got my Thingmark here. You can select this Thingmark and you can decide how big it's going to be. So this is in meters. So I'm going to actually just change it to 5 centimeters, so which is like 0.05. So it's a little bit bigger, but that's where it's going to be. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to add a simple model. So remember, I've told you already about, so you just go to the model part and you just drag it and drop it. You should see something like this. This would be like a little bit placed over the model, right? So if you want to drag it, you can always just do that using this. You have the axes here. So if you do want to make sure it's partly underneath the thing. If I want to just bring it up so that it's above my Thingmark, so you can see it's placed on top of there. Now, this is just a default model. Now, I want to actually join it, connect it. This is where the files that we have taken from. So I'm going to go and I'm going to hit plus, and I'm going to select file. So I had a few different, and I'm just going to go to my GitHub folder. So this is the same, and if you've copied that, I have 3 different models here. We're going to use these later, but I'm going to just start with pipe.stp and just say add. Okay, it converts it to PVZ, which is the native Creo format. STP has come from either SolidWorks or from maybe what you've created elsewhere. Once I do that, it replaces my image here. In fact, now I can see I've probably placed it too high, so I'm just going to bring it lower a bit. I'm going to scale it a little bit so that it's, this will be the relative size here. So you can see that. If you don't feel like using these, you can also set the X coordinates, the rotation and everything here. So I could maybe, like my Z coordinate, I just want to set it to 0. So I'm just going to do that. You can see the slight movement. It comes in there. So you can see the axes here. This is the blue is my Z coordinate, red is my X coordinate, and Y is there. So you can adjust it accordingly here. So once I do this, in fact, you can also scale it up if you don't want it to be just like 1. So I'm going to scale it up. Maybe that's too big because I want to show it to you on my phone. So now I have a pipe here that is created. In case it gets deselected, you can always select it and see it again. So we can resize accordingly there. And that pretty much does it for the 2D part. Let's go into the 2D thing. Now, the 2D view is automatically populated. There is a top section. There are different panels, and you can see the 2D overlay here. So I've got a left panel, a right panel, a center panel, a top panel, which is at the thing, and the bottom panel. I'm going to use the top panel to display, what I'm going to do is you can drag all these are all the widgets that you can use there. So a lot of the things, it's very similar to ThingWorks Builder in that sense, where you can, to ThingWorks Mashup Builder, where you just drag and drop. So I just drag an image. I want to actually, you can use any image, but I think I already, I'm just going to add an image that I had lying around. I had it here. I haven't uploaded this, but you can use anything on there. I'm just going to use the assembly logo. I can choose to center it. It's left right now. So that's going to be my title, right? So I center it. And then, if I go and preview this, you can see it's auto saving it. And if I go to preview it, it should open it up. I'm not going to go back to my phone at this point because we are running short on time, but here it gives you the idea here. So you can see I have my header. I can move this around. This is how it would look in my augmented reality experience. It would just like plug in on there. Usually you might keep a ThingWorks, the logo on top. So it might be used, the Thingmark would be on top of a real world object. So you might actually want to place it below. In this case, since we're only using it here, we just do that. So you can see the title is on there. I'm just going to keep this there. Now, the next thing that we want to do is let's add some functionality. I'm going to go back to 2D. I'm going to add a slider. There are lots of different widgets you can add from here. I'm just going to add a slider here. And I want this slider to be able to rotate my, my object on there. So let me just save it and let's just have a look at the preview. You can see the slider is there. Oh, it's not refreshed yet, that's why. Okay, so the slider is there. And the slider right now does nothing, but I can move it around. If I go back here, I want my slider plugged in so that so that I can control the rotation on my object using that slider. So I'm going to change that. I want it to be set to degrees. So I'm going to set it to 360 degrees. I'm going to set the step value to 15. So there are 15 steps done every time I move it. And my default value is 0. So by 0, my rotation is 0. So what I want to do is that every time this value changes, I want to change the model rotation. So how do I do this? I drag this, just so that I'll just show that to you again. You just take the small symbol behind at the side of value and you just drag it to model. And under model, I have to select one of the properties that I want to adjust. I want to change the Y rotation based on that. So now when I do this binding, you can see it's automatically added in here. It says the binding expression changes my slider value will be set. My model, every time my slider value changes, my model will change that. Okay, so let's go back to our preview and refresh. So now when my slider is here, and if I change it around, so you can see it's rotating. So it's automatically changing the property of a 3D object based on the slider value. This doesn't have to be a slider. This could be a text box. It could be many different things. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so let's go back and let's do a little bit more of stuff with this. Okay, I'm going to change my, the pipe is great for showing this thing. I'm going to use a more complex object. Let's go back to our 3D view. Let's select our model, and I'm going to change the resource from pipe. I'm going to upload a different one, which I had there, a more complex one. It's also in GitHub. So if you've downloaded GitHub, you will definitely find it. And I'm going to download pump.pvz. This is a bit more complicated, and I have a few things that I'll show you on that. So let's just add that. That's already a PVZ file. So you can see that. Actually, this thing is, you should probably adjust it relative to the Thingmark. I'm going to reduce the scale actually. In this case, it's much bigger. So I'm going to reduce the scale to, let's just say 0.65. Yeah. The other thing is it's also rotated wrong. So I'm going to change the rotation. It's the Z rotation, I think. Oh no, not Z rotation. It's the, no, I want to actually change the X rotation. There is, by the way, you can undo, and Control Z and all do work here. So if you feel like something's on there, let me just change that. And that puts it right side up. Of course, I could do this manually. Let me just also move it down closer to the mark because it's kind of, okay, I've sent it below, but I should probably just bring it above. Let's just zoom into the thing so that it's easier. It's a far way away from the Thingmark, so I need to move that. So probably here. Is that better? Oh no, still moving. And I'm just going to place it right on top of the Thingmark here. Okay. Still below, so I need to bring it up. So this can take a while to get used to, as you can see, but once you get the hang of it, it's quite simple, really. Okay, so this is our setting. We have our pipe there. Let's see how it looks on our preview. Our slider function will actually break right now because if you, oh, it's not saved yet. Let it finish. Because I added a new model, it will take a little bit more time. Okay, so it's still a little bit off there, but you'll notice one thing, like if I do the slider mode, it's not, because it's not directly centered on its axis. So when I do this, it's actually rotating around something further away. So don't worry about that. That was just a demonstration. Let me actually just make sure that you can click on any of the axes if you want to get it to show there. So yeah, so there it's like kind of right wedged in there. Okay, great. So we've added our pump on there. Let's start adding a little bit more function. Now what we want to do is, remember that we told you that the important thing here is that you want to, you want to actually handle this. Let me make this a little bit smaller also. You want to be able to handle data from ThingWorks Okay, so you want to be able to handle ThingWorks data in here. And how do you do that? How do you handle IoT data? So we've seen the ThingWorks platform in the past. Unfortunately, in the trial version, we can't connect to an external ThingWorks solution. We can, because it doesn't let you do that, like even your cloud server, it won't let us connect there. But fortunately, we do have an inbuilt ThingWorks instance that comes with the trial. How do you get that? You just go, you take your experience, you copy your default experience service, open that up in a new window, and just add /ThingWorks at the end of it. It'll ask you for the same, this is the same credential that you used previously for your trial, so everything is there. So this is an interface we're familiar with. We've used this. This is our IoT interface, ThingWorks Composer, where we create things that model real world data, and we put it in there. So you can access the data. This is a read-only version, so we can't edit anything. But there are a few things that are automatically installed there. So the thing that we need to look at is as car1. Okay, you can ignore the entrances. These are just because of security. Now, car1 is our model, our data model that we have here. And under properties and alerts, you can see a whole bunch of properties that are useful. So RPM, oil level, speed, and all that. We can't edit this and change the values, but they have actually set it so that there's a service that automatically updates here. So you can actually look at it. Like it's, if you see in this, there is an update properties, which is like just populating the values, and it's just saying, it's taking random values and it's just seeding that. So it'll automatically change here. So this will be a live thing in our case, and we're going to use that for our, okay, but that's what I'm only showing you this so that you're familiar with this. What we're interested in, some properties, RPM is a number property. We have speed, obviously another number property. We're going to use oil level, and we're going to use engine temp. Okay, now how do we bind to this data from the ThingWorks model? Okay, if we were using an external ThingWorks to composer, we could always configure that in the non-trial version using our experience. But let's go back to our preview. Okay, now what we want to do is here, let's go back to 2D. Actually, no, before we go to 2D, let's stick with 3D. Let's add a 3D label here. Okay, a 3D label is just a simple one. I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to scale this a bit also. It's a 3D thing, so I'm just going to scale it to 0.6 also, so it's not too big. So this 3D label is something that moves around. But if you notice 3D label, in case you get in trouble, like selecting from here, you can always select here also 3D label. This 3D label for me is something that is like, if you look at it again, right now it doesn't say anything, so it won't show up. Okay, it doesn't show up because we've not even given it a value. Oh, it's there. Okay, we need to push it a little bit closer. I'm actually going to just set the 3D. Let's just set the coordinates because this is a bit easier to do. I'll just set everything to 0, 0, 0. And you should also check off a box called, let's look at this again. So our label is now there. I'm just going to drag it a little bit off. Yeah. So our label is there, but let me also get rid of the rotation so that it doesn't look weird. Oh, no, let's do that. Should be minus 90. Okay, now, but this label is flat here right now. But if you want it to appear as a billboard, so it's always facing you when you are viewing, you just click billboard, the check. So now you can see it's oriented in such a way that it is there. If we go back to our label, here it's like still flat. Hopefully it should refresh once it saves. Yeah. So here's our label. Our label is now like wherever we move it, if we move it around, it still faces you because so this is the billboard option for there. Okay. So our label right now isn't bound to anything. What we need to do is we need to get some data into that. So we are going to add, so for that, we need the data panel over here. Okay. So from there, we go to external data. I click plus. This will automatically populate. It'll prompt me to save this here. It'll automatically populate it with the associated ThingWorks, ThingWorks instance. And you can automatically see the things we were looking at. So car1 thing is what we wanted to use. So we just double select that. Now we're going to use a property, a default property called get property values. Sorry, this is a service called get property values. Okay, and then we just add it here. And it's automatically added once we close it. So you can see the property is added on here. Okay, we need to configure this so it happens at a certain time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure it's invoked on startup. When we start it, it should happen. It should pull a value from the underlying service, but we should also auto refresh it so that every n seconds if the value changes. So we'll change it an auto refresh to 5 seconds. We don't want to set this too often, otherwise it'll be updating too often. So every 5 seconds, it'll go back to the ThingWorks server and pull this. Okay. Now we've done all this. We've got the function there. What we need to do is we need to bind it to the label. Again, we do it with drag and drop. We're going to take RPM. We just drag this and then we just drop it. You can drop it either here or you can drop it directly on 3D label. And what you want to do is you want to update the label text with whatever that property value is. So once we do that, let's save. Let's refresh. Still refreshing. And now you'll see a value. And every 5 seconds, this value will change. So this is coming from the ThingWorks thing. So you can see it changing. So we've automatically got that data coming in from a few different spaces there. Okay, so we've got this. There are other tools also we can put in there. We can use a 3D gauge, for example. I'm just going to drop a 3D gauge here. This 3D gauge, I'm just going to close this. I don't want to use it in billboard mode because I want to paste it onto there. I'm going to make it this way and I'm going to actually stick it onto, so it looks like it's part of the tool. Let me just do this. I'm going to drag it up and I'm going to place it on top of here. So I want it to look like, oh, I don't want to turn it upside down. Let me just Control Z that so that I don't lose that position. Now what I want to do is I want this actually to be, let me just remove the rotations. Okay, it's not a billboard, but I want to actually make this, let's change the rotation here. So this is actually a Y rotation, so I want to change it so I can make it flat. Oh, no, sorry, not a Y rotation. I want to make it flat on the x-axis. Yeah, so I get it flat, and I'm going to scale it a little bit so that it doesn't look so big. Maybe let's just do it to 0.65 again. And I'm just going to put it in such a way that it, oh, I changed that again. No Z rotation. You can use Control Z to undo as well. And I'm just going to place it on there. In fact, I should probably make it even smaller. Let's make it 0.5. Okay, so it fits nicely on our object here directly. Okay, I'll let you guys figure out the full thing otherwise, but we can definitely just place it on top accordingly. Okay, so for this, it's not perfectly placed, I know, but just bear with it for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my data, and I'm going to get another value from there. Let's say speed, right? So I'm going to drag speed, and I'm going to just take it to the 3D gauge. And I'm just going to set the text automatically on there. Save. It'll say server error when it's in the process of saving, but then it'll come back. Okay, there's something a little bit wrong with my placement right now, but you can see the gauge is automatically changing based on that. I think my axes are switched. That's why it's messing around a bit. But anyhow, that's not a difficult exercise to fix. So, okay. So you could place an item right on top of there, and it would directly put it on there. Okay, so I mean, this is pretty much the 3D part of it. I just want to show you a few things that you can do with 2D, and then we can hopefully wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so. Let's go back to the 2D. I'm going to actually get rid of my slider now because we're kind of done with that. You just have to hit remove. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a grid layout, and we're going to add some buttons. A grid layout has a few different options there. We'll add one row. Let's add a few columns. We'll add 3 columns because we're going to put some buttons in here. I'm going to use a few toggle buttons in there. So toggle buttons are going to toggle some action, and they are going to be set like toggle buttons just switch on and off. I'm going to add a few toggle buttons in each of this thing. You can also browse here. What you should do also is under the panel, under column 1, just say the alignment is center. Oops, sorry, no, is this, no, not the button. I need to select the column. So this is going to be our interface with 3 buttons, and we have to set images. We can just use, there are lots of default images. I'm going to just use the play button here. Now toggle button needs a value, needs an icon for when it's pressed and when it's unpressed. I'm going to use the same icon, but you can always set a different one. So I'm just going to say when it's pressed, use this, use the play button. Oh, where did it go? _. Oh, I'm missing the play button here. Sequence play, right? So sequence play is there whether it's pressed or not pressed. I'm also going to give it a few other buttons. I'm just going to call this an info button. I'll explain what it does later on, so don't worry about that. Similarly, These are actually from dials, which is why you'll see them prompted, but you can always use your custom ones. But in this case, we just use this as these are already ready. And similarly for this one, what should I use? Let's use a gauge button here. And I'll tell you what it does later on. Okay, so these are all our buttons that we need for our interface, and we're going to put in a few different things on that. We're going to leave aside the play button for now, right? Let's concentrate on the I button. What I want to do with the I button is I want to show a card in my view that has, that shows some text. So I'm going to just drag a card object here, right? And under the card object, I'm going to add two value displays. Okay, so two value displays. So this is going to be a card that just shows automatically. What I want to do is I want to get these values. I'm going to call the first one my oil, and the second one will be my temperature label. Okay, and the values that I want to get, I want to again get these from the property. So I'm going to get oil level, and I'm just going to drag it and drop it here. Just say the value, set the value, bind it, and the engine temperature will be bound to here. Again, set the value, and we'll do that. Okay, now this card, I want it only to be visible when the toggle button is clicked. Okay, so how do I do that? I select the toggle button, and there is like for pressed, I can drag it. I'm going to drag it from here and take it to my card. Okay, so the visibility of my card, I can set it according to whether the toggle button is set. So when my toggle button is pressed, if the card will be visible. When it isn't, then it does that. Now what will this look like? Let's go back. So now you've got your standard thing. In fact, it's properly placed now, so you can see the dial above, and it's moving around here. My toggle is actually already, because it's pre-pressed, you can see the card, but if I want to hide the card, I just press this. Oh, sorry, I think I put the label outside. What I need to do is I need to make sure that the second value display is within the card space. So you can just easily change that. Now if we go back, you can check all your bindings to make sure that the visibility is on there. I want to make sure that it's not pressed. So I keep it unchecked. So the button is not pre-pressed. So my card would not be visible at the start. So let's see. So there you go. So now the card is not visible, but when I want to view it, I just press my information button and I get a small little box that gives me these values. And these values also keep changing every 5 seconds. So I have like blocked off that. I have my speed, I have my RPM as a label, and I've got my card. So I've got enough information. The other thing I want to do is there's a lot of space being taken up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this button to hide. This one I'm going to keep pressed by default. I'm going to use this button. When it is pressed, I want to hide my, okay, I'm just going to drop it back. Ignore that. So when this button is pressed, I want to hide my 3D label. So I'm going to set my visibility according to that. And I'm also going to, you can always do a second binding. I'm going to take that and also hide my gauge, set the visibility according there. So now you will see two items here. It'll say whenever my, this button is pressed, hide, only when this button is pressed, make sure that the 3D label is visible and the 3D gauge is there. So we've bound two objects here. And let's see what it looks like. Once we go back here, okay, let it refresh. And if we click this, so you can see this button is already pressed. If we click this, it hides our RPM as well as our value. Okay, so our button is set on that. Now let's work on the last button. What we are going to do actually in this, let's go back to 3D. we're going to use the last item. We're going to add a second item. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to take a model and I'm just going to drop it here. Hopefully it isn't too far off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the other resource that I've provided here, the remote control.pvz. Just select that and add it. So this is the last item. I'm also going to our remote, we're not really interested in looking at the button. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that, let's see, the Y rotation should be 180. No, sorry, the X rotation should be 180, right? So we see the bottom of the, I can remove the Y rotation. So we see the bottom of the remote, and I'll tell you why we're going to do that. Now, the interesting thing about this remote control is like the PVZ file contains animation automatically. So if you scroll down to sequence and you select the resource, there is a disassembly sequence. So this is an animation with several steps. Okay, I don't want to apply it at design time. I only want to apply it when I click on a button. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this here. And this is where my last, my last play button. I'm going to go back to my 2D. I'm going to go to the 2D button and and bind the play button to my second model. Oh, sorry, wrong place. I just leave that there. I've got to take the click event of the 2D button, and I'm going to bind it to model 2. See, you can automatically see it knows that model has a sequence, so it's got a play function on there. You can do play all, which will play all the steps of the animation, but I'm going to do only play, which will play one step at a time. So let's bind it. So now when I click my play button, the animation that is automatically set for the sequence will work directly. Okay, just go to refresh. So now you can see our second item there. Let me just roll it up. Now, if I hit play, it starts the animation, which is opening the batteries. So it removes the batteries. This is only step 1. If I hit play again, it puts it back in and it closes it. So there are only 2 steps in this animation. So every time we hit play, it does 1 step. And when I toggle it, it closes back. So we've successfully added an animation as well to our details. So now the last thing that we're going to do is I'm going to just connect you back to our, I'm going to go back to my share. Let me stop sharing here. Okay, let me just stop my share on here. I'm going to switch over to my share let me start the video again. Now I'm going to just share from my phone again. Let's go back to our view. Again, we need to take our Thingmark out because we have bound it to that. Oh, we're still in the quadcopter. I forgot the most important thing. Before I do that, let me just go back to my window because so far we've just been previewing it. What we need to do is we need to go into design and now we need to click on publish. So usually the experience is about, it'll be a few MB. So it'll be 2 to 3 MB. So first it'll automatically save because we didn't save after that. So just give it a little while. There you can see it's uploading the project. It's about 4 MB. Obviously, we've got 2 models. The models are what take up the most of the space. So it should be fine. Let me stop this share. Now let me share from my phone. Okay, and let's go back. Let me bring up my. Now you can see there are 2 experiences with the same Thingwork because I already have the quadcopter. So I'm going to select the assembly test. it'll actually ask me for the details because I'm getting data from my ThingWorks server. So I do need to select that. I'd already saved it, luckily. So it's there. Just select assembly test again. Okay, it's not picking it up right yet. There you go. So it's picking up because I've actually got it, like it's quite large. So you can see my my panel is there. I've got my value on there. If I click hide, it hides. If I've got there, if I click on this, it shows me my panel. Let's try to find the remote item. Where is that? Oh, I can't find remote. So I should have made it a little bit smaller. Let me actually just, while you guys are waiting here, let me go back to my experience and I'll just do it in the background. I'm just going to move my remote around. Okay, I'm just going to republish and then I'll have to scan again. I'm not going to scan right away because it's still uploading, I can see. Okay, and now it's scanned. So let me go back to it. So I've got my item back and I've got this. Where's that remote gone? Oh, it's on the other side. So there's the remote. So you can see it there. Now, what we want to do with the remote, as I mentioned, is like we have the last thing that we want to check out. So we've got this item, which is getting the data. So everything is working, everything is plugged in. We've got the panel that is changing. I haven't placed it perfectly, but I can close this. We've got the information box. And for our remote, our second 3D model item, I'm going to hit play. So now you can see everything happening there in real time with that. And every time I click it, it comes back to that. Let me stop sharing. So remember, the Thingmark actually becomes universal here. So anywhere I go, this Thingmark is identical to me. I don't have to start up the experience. It'll find it on that. And you can link it to, you can use the other Thingmarks as well. I've chosen to use this one. If you want to replace the Thingmark, you can always use other Thingmarks from here, and you can print them out accordingly. Let me just share my screen again. So yeah, so that about does it for our session. We've covered everything that we had to do. We've done a lot of different stuff. So you can see that everything is quite interesting with this, and there's a lot more that can be done with augmented reality in relation to AR as well. So I urge you all, just make sure that you do have a look around and see what you can do. The samples are great. I'm just going to share my screen again. This session is concluded, but we do have, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about. Okay, yeah, so my screen is shared again. Yeah, so this covers everything for augmented reality. So we've seen how it works with Vuforia. You can check out you have a 30-day trial with that. We will try to also see if we can get some additional support for you on the basis of this, because we are trying to build a developer community around IoT, and augmented reality is going to play a big part. For the next couple of months, we won't do another workshop on augmented reality, but we will come back to it in Q2. Our next workshop from the assembly and in this series is going to be on February 28th. So let me just show that. So that's our next workshop. Again, this will be more of a coding workshop. So if you have a coding background, it helps with that. We'll develop edge apps. So we'll be working on the edge. The last workshop we did also use edge apps, but this way we'll work with the SDKs. So that'll be on February 28th, the same time. This is the same process. Please be sure to RSVP there. And 1 month after that, exactly 1 month, 28th March, we'll do another a web development for the IoT platform. Again, we'll use the IoT platform that we've got, and we'll build a customizable web dashboard. So in this case, we built an AR dashboard, but we'll go back to our mashup builder and we'll build that. So yeah, so feel free to get in touch with us, regarding everything. We are We are definitely hoping that you enjoyed this session. Let us know how it works out for you. Let us know how everything goes, and we'll definitely get that. Okay, I'm going to stop the share now. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Have a great one, guys.